Good morning. The poem for today is The Sea and the Skylark. This is a poem by Gerard Manley Hopkins. Hopkins, though born and brought up in the times of Victoria, is considered again with a bent towards modernism. So you see, in this picture, I've tried to capture the sea and the skylark. This picture will describe two things from nature and contrast these natural aspects with man who is losing his integrity. Here's the poem The Sea and the Skylark. On year and year, two noises too old to hear, too old to end, trench right the tide that rams against the shore with a flood or a fall, low lull off or all roar, frequenting there while moon shall wear and wend. Left hand off land, I hear the lark ascend, his rash, fresh, rewinded new skein score in crisps of curd, of wild winch whir, and pour and pelt music, till none's to spill nor spend. How these two shame this shallow and frail town, how ring right out our sordid turbid time, being pure, we life's pride and cared for crown, have lost that cheer and charm of earth's past prime, our make and making break, our breaking down, to man's last dust, drain fast towards man first slime. If you just have a look at the poem, you will find that it has 14 lines. So a 14-line poem is a sonnet. It is a sonnet. It has a rhyme pattern. You see, A, B, B, A, B, B, A in the first 8 lines. And you find C, D, E, C, D, E in the last. This is one of quite a number of sonnets written in the spring of 1877 when Hopkins was at St. Bruno. This sonnet was originally titled Walking by the Sea, but the title and the second quatrain were revised in 1882. So every person who has a poet has the right to change his lines. I showed you this picture of the sea. There is this description of the sea at his right and the skylark at his left. It is a regular Petrarchan sonnet with a rhyme pattern. I'll check for the pattern. I'll begin it. Clearly marked division between octave and sestet. You have the 8 lines of the octave and the 6 lines of the sestet with unusually each section being again divided into half into 2 quatrains or 2 tercets as the case may be. In the octave, Hopkins compares two ancient sounds, that of the sea and that of the song of the bird, and the skylark, one of whose favorite haunts is sand dunes. The first quatrain deals with the sea. Coming back to the poem, here is a quick paraphrase. On ear and ear, two noises, too old to end. See the twos. On year and year, two noises too old to end. Trench right, trench. That means they come across together. Right, the tide that rams against the shore. You see, when you are at the seashore, you'll hear the tide and you'll hear the movement of the waves. With the flood or fall, low lull of, or all roar, frequenting there, while the moon shall wear and wane. There is this on the right, he can hear the sound of the tide, which is ramping against the shore. That is, the sea waves are coming towards the shore with the flood or the fall. There's this rising and falling action. Low lull for all roar. When it comes towards the shore, then you can hear a loud noise, and when it moves back, you hear a softer voice. See the combination of the sounds that Hopkins is bringing in. Frequenting there while the moon shall wear and wane. There's the moon shining. Look at the beautiful picture of nature. There's the moon shining, and the moon will wear and wane. That is, there'll be wear and tear. That will be, the moon will rise, and finally the moon will set. So, on his right, there is the sea, there is the vast sea, there is the magnanimous sea, there is the beauty of the sea, and there is this natural sound of the waves, the rise and fall of the waves. You see, this kind of poetry is basically, Hopkins' name is associated with the term sprung rhythm. What is sprung rhythm? Sprung rhythm, it is a technical term. Now, it is that, you see, you know what is rhyme, you know what is meter. So there is, you have this measurement of poetry. Just as you measure things with your tape, if it's 1 foot, then you will have one sound, one syllable, stressed syllable followed by weaker, less or unstressed syllables. Okay, that is the pattern of sprung rhythm. When you go in deeply into what is sprung rhythm, it is basically from nature. Rhythm derived from nature, coming in as a shock. They come in suddenly. On year and year, two noises too old to entrench. That is, they come together. Right, the tide that rams against the shore with a flood of fall, low lull of all roll. These are all sounds of nature. This is a typical Welsh kind of poetry, where Hopkins Welsh is that which comes from Wales. So this kind of poetry, where sudden words from nature come together and they are thrown in. That is why it's called sprung rhythm. This is all about, because it's a short poem. It's just a sonnet. So he's given 4 lines to the sea. In the next 4 lines, he will describe the skylark. Left hand off land, I hear the lark ascend. His rash fresh rewinded, new skeined score in crisps of curl, of wild wind swirl, and pour and pelt music till none's to spill or spend. You read Ode to Skylark last year by Shelley. The skylark is almost described like that. The shrill creaks of the skylark soaring towards the sky, and the freshness of the skylark, they all come in just these 4 lines. But see how he brings in alliteration after alliteration. Left hand off, I hear the lark ascend. The lark is the skylark. Ascend is the skylark is soaring. His rash, fresh, rewinded, new-skinned score. Score here is music. It is rash fresh. It is not only fresh, but it is rash fresh. That means it's absolutely fresh. Rewinded, new-skinned score. In the disc you have, when you rewind, comes back, and it comes back in a very new form. So rewinded, new skinned score, the music. In crisps of curve of wild wind swirl and pour and pelt music. How do they come in? The new kind of music come in crisp curls and they whirl. That is, it's a recurring tone. It happens again and again. It's recurring. So wild winch word. Wild, because skylark is a free bird. So it's wild winch word and pour and pelt music. And you can have only music and music which is coming down. You see, in Ode to Skylark also, this Skylark's music could be heard even when it could not be seen. So, and when it brings out music from the um sky, you can just hear it, and it's just pour and pelt music like crystal streams. So many comparisons you had in Ode to Skylark. Till none's to spill or spin. He concludes by saying, till there is nothing to spill or spin, no more music to coming from the sky or coming out of the mouth of the skylark. The skylark makes a steep ascent towards the sky and pours out music. And the music is rash fresh, that is absolutely fresh. It has come in a new form, in a new skein, and it it's crisp, it curls off, it whirls, it twists round and round, and that means it echoes, it can be heard everywhere, and it comes from the topmost reach of the sky. And it comes on and on. It's a recurring music. Okay? How these two shame this shallow and frail town. How right, how ring right out our sordid turbid time. See, 8 lines over. Now he will contrast these two aspects of nature to humanity. He first says town. Town word in the beginning of modern poetry symbolize modernism. So he says these two aspects of nature, they shame this shallow and frail town. The town is shallow and frail, town is inanimate, but the people living in the town have become shallow and frail and weak. How ring right out our sordid turbid time. Turbid is disturbed. So this is clearly a disturbed time. Being pure, we life's pride and cared for crown. We were pure. We were born pure. We were God's best creation. Life, pride, and cared for crown. We were the crown of God's creation. God tried many things, but then he found satisfaction only when he created man. Have lost that cheer and charm of earth's past prime. Human beings, mankind, have lost that charm which we were created for. Our make and making break are breaking down. Our very make, that is what we had been made for, is breaking, and we are no more that the best creation that God imagined us to be, that God created us for. To man's last dust, drain fast towards man's first line. We just drain towards dust. We are ending in dust without achieving the first line, that is, without achieving the first aim for which we were created, for which God created us. Got it? The last six lines, I think it's not visible here for some reason. Uh, it should have been, but then I don't know. Yes, yes, it's coming. Yes. How these two shame this shallow and frail town, how ring right out our sordid turbid time, being pure, we life's pride and cared for crown, have lost that cheer and charm of earth's past prime, our make and making break, are breaking down to man's last dust, drain fast towards man's first slime. You won't find word to word paraphrase in these poems. Okay, these two these two aspects of nature, they shame the shallow and frail town. How ring right out our sordid turbid time. See, this is our sordid, dirty, turbid, fully disturbed time. It comes out. Why? This is, the poet is contrasting the two aspects of nature to the present, to the modern town, which is sordid and which is facing turbid, disturbed times. He says, see, the poet Hopkins, he was a priest. So you'll have that note of morality, Victorian morality coming in his poems. So he says, we were pure, we were born pure. We life's pride and cared for crown. We were supposed to be God's best creation. We were supposed to be the crown of all creation. That is the best creation. We have lost that cheer and charm of earth's past prime. We have no longer tried to remain the best of God's creation. Our make and making break, our breaking down. See the emphasis on the word break, 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 breaking. Alliteration है ना? Break, break, breaking. So we are breaking, we are going down, we are deteriorating, we are no more. We are going down to man's last dust. We are going back towards the first slime, that is, towards the first sin which man committed. So we are full of sins where there is no hope for us, and we are in contrast with the beauty of nature. The beauty of nature, which is so clearly evident in the two things that the poet witnesses. He was actually on a holiday to a place called Ryle, and there he wrote most of his poetry. So he had the beauty of nature around him. He had the sea on one side, and he could listen to many sounds, many voices of nature, which is why uh, these sounds are presented so poignantly in his poems. This sonnet was originally entitled Walking by the Sea. That is very clearly evident. You see, it is, he describes what happened, what he did while he was walking by the sea. Now you can see that it's a Petrarchan rhyming which has the pattern of A B A B C D C D C D. Okay, and it is, there's a clear marked division between the octave and the sestet, and it's usually each section being again divided into quatrains and tercets as the case may be. In the octave you have the two ancient sounds, the sea and the song of the bird. And you always, and you, since you've read Ode to Skylark, recently, so seriously, so lovingly. So I don't think you need much explanation on the Skylark. The first quatrain deals with the sea. Hopkins is walking along the shore near the North Wales town of Rhyl, some 6 or 7 miles from the college. Then this place was becoming an upcoming tourist resort, so naturally they had these beautiful things around, the beauty of nature, and especially the way Hopkins uses the contrasting sounds of the high and low tide. Okay, and see the expressions uses for the um, shrill cry for the music of the skylark. This is about the second quatrain, that is the next second 4 lines pertaining to the skylark. So he draws our attention to the skylark soaring, to the sound, and he says that it's a musical score coming out of his throat, and it is fresh like anything. And then it's almost as if the thread is pressed around the reel and you pull it. It's like that. So it rewinds and then again plays. So I'd rather give you the example of the CD rather than that of the fish, which you may have not seen. Then in this line, and the line is being rewound onto the another reel which the bird can take when he swoops downwards. So there's this upward and downward movement of the skylark. The word rewinded is a play on words. As a fisherman rewinds the reel, but it's also an instrument, winding a horn, or in modern times you have the CD. Now coming to the what is the octave and what is the sestet in the sonnet. The octave is descriptive, giving the description of the sea and the skylark, and the sestet sees the two things which according to the Bible were created by God, but man of the town is it's a big shame on that. The town is a symbol of man's fall from better, from innocent times, and there is this heavy irony that there is this ugly modern life which can be contrasted to the uniqueness and beauty of nature. Hopkins' humanity's so-called progress is towards man's first slime, as I told you, with its superficiality, but it is reversing down any so-called chain of evolution. So don't take these lines. So humanity, we are returning to the first slime where God created us, and then man hurt God by tasting the fruit of knowledge. All that of priesthood is coming in these lines. Okay, what is best known for in this poem is the use of alliteration. There's so much of alliteration. You can see in the very first line you have t t t, two noises too old to end. T t t t, trench, and then t tide. See, fall, flood and fall, low lull or fall roar, la. Look at these sounds. And then you have rash, fresh, rewinded, new skein score, sh. Crisps of curl of wild wind swirl. Got it? And then I did not put it here because this is what you have to practice. And then in the sestet you don't have so much of it. We have lost that cheer and charm. are make and making, break and breaking. Are make and making, break and are breaking. So these are the alliterations which Hopkins has used so effectively. Hopkins was known more for experimenting and uh, for his technique that he used, for his remarkable technique, and for bringing out this what is called sprung rhythm in poetry. You have many of his sonnets which have this sprung rhythm. Okay, so thank you. That is the end of this short poem. It's a sonnet, so naturally it can't be more than 14 lines. You have to read the definition of sprung rhythm, which is a poetic meter approximating to speech, each foot of which has one stressed syllable followed by a varying number of unstressed ones. So you're not experimenting on that, but remember, alliteration for you in the poem is more important. So Hopkins is associated with the word sprung rhythm, and he uses a lot of alliteration, which makes him a very experimental poet. Read the poem, read the lines. You have two aspects of nature. Which two aspects of nature does Hopkins describe in the octave of the sonnet? And then, second question, how does he contrast um, the two aspects of nature to man or to the modern town? Okay, these are the two possible questions, and of course, the essay type questions. Question is attempt a critical appreciation of uh, The Sea and the Skylark by Hopkins. Thank you.